Today we will be focusing on a very interesting topic that many aspiring developers have. That is, should I focus on front-end development or back-end development in 2023? This question has different answers depending on different factors such as your career goals, market demand, your passion, and most especially your personal interest. So we cannot really start this video without defining what in the world is front-end and back-end development. Firstly, let's start with front-end. Front-end is a part of the website or the application that the users interact directly with, and the technologies that make up front-end are mainly HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So the backend is basically what the user does not interact with, but that is very important to the functioning of the application. The backend consists of the database, the server, the application logic. This is what happens, for example, when you click on the like button on Facebook. It goes to the backend or the server, processes the like, and renders a +1 button or changes the color of the like button in the front end. So this is where all the heavy lifting or all the processing happens. And the languages or the notable languages that make up a backend, we have Python, that is very popular, Java, PHP. So now, knowing the difference between front-end and back-end development, you have to decide which one you want to get started with, especially as an aspiring developer or as a beginner. If you are watching this video expecting a yes or no answer as to which one you should get started with, then this is a wrong video for you. But if you want to get all the points necessary in order to locate which type of developer you might be and which path to follow, then this video is for you. You can keep on watching. So let's start with the pros and cons of both domains. So the first point is the market demand. So with the rise and increase of businesses all wanting to have websites nowadays, there is an increased demand in front-end developers, as most businesses just have a quick landing page and they do not have actually complex business logic on the back end. Most businesses just have a landing page, emails, and a way to contact customers. So in that case, front-end development or front-end developers are very much required. And also, it's literally easier to get started with web development or with front-end web development, as HTML, CSS are relatively easier to get a grasp on and can be compiled on any language. No extra step is needed to actually get started and build a website. On the other hand, backend development is in high demand when it comes to more advanced domains like cloud engineering, data engineering, and building more complex application logic. Unlike front-end, that you can just get started and build a quick website for a client without the need of any complex backend. But for backend, you are more inclined to learn more complex things in order to be relevant in the market. Another good thing about backend development is that backend offers higher salaries. Now let's see a little bit of the cons when it comes to market demand. As I usually say, with great power comes great responsibilities. The front-end developers have the power to just get started or get the ball rolling and start building a website, but that also shows that there is a low barrier to entry, which makes the market very saturated. So there are a lot of front-end developers, so there is a high supply relative to the demand. So you see a lot of front-end developers complaining not to find jobs, and it's not because there's a lack of job, it's just because the competition is very, very high. So keep that in mind when going for front-end development. Another con with front-end development is that there are new frameworks and new libraries that come out every single day. For example, React.js is a very popular front-end library which is relevant today but might not be relevant tomorrow. That is how so many front-end libraries come and go, and front-end developers find themselves having to learn the new hot language or the new hot framework in order to stay relevant in the market. Now let's view some cons with backend development. One very apparent con is that backend development is generally more complex, generally more difficult and more complex to build very fast application logic or very well-structured databases. So backend in general is more complex to grasp, more difficult, but at the end it generally pays more. Also, backend development might have a steeper learning curve. Now let's look a little bit at the skill sets required. If you are the kind of person who has an eye for design, or who generally, when you see something, you already know on which order the thing should be placed based just on the visual concept, then front end is for you, as there is a lot of visualizing going on in the front end side and viewing which color goes with which one before actually making a decision. So if you're that kind of person, then front end is for you. Whereas if you're more of a logical person, somebody who thinks about math more than thinking about the visual side, then backend development is for you, because backend deals with more of systematic logic more than on the front end side. The next we are going to see is the career goals and opportunities on both ends. Generally, for a lot of startups hire a lot of front end because in a startup, what is most important is the relationship with your customers and the presentation of the whole business as a whole. So generally, startups hire mostly front-end developers, or they hire a lot of front-end developers, whereas back-end developers are hired more in the larger corporations who need a stronger business logic or application logic in order to make their applications run more smoothly and handle more and more users. So keep that in mind when deciding to pick which one, and that is also why generally backend developers may have a higher salary than frontend developers, because backend developers may find more opportunities in the larger corporations than in the smaller corporations. And if finally, after everything, you still cannot decide between going with front-end development only or back-end development only, you can still decide to do both and you become a full-stack developer, because that is still a thing nowadays, where there is a single developer who handles a lot of things on the front-end side and still handles a lot of things on the back-end side. And full-stack developers are very much required, especially in companies that are growing very fast, because they do not have time to delegate these tasks just to a front-end developer or another task just the back-end. They generally give you one task to do which involves combining both. So keep in mind that being a full-stack developer is also a very much viable option in 2023. So if you cannot decide which one to go to and you have enough time in your hands and enough dedication to learn both sides, you can learn front-end development, back-end development, learn how to combine the two via APIs and become a full-stack developer. The only bad side of being a full-stack developer is that you're not actually a master of anyone, because you always have to switch between both contexts and you don't have enough time to focus on one and strengthen your skills. So basically you become a jack of all trades, a master of none. But do not worry. A lot of companies do not want you to actually master a particular language or a particular style of programming. They just want you to get the job done. So as long as you can get the job done, you can always make the dream work. So all in all, both front-end and back-end have their own merits and they have their own challenges. So depending on your career goals, your personal interests, and everything listed in this video, you should make your choice depending on that. Or at the end of the day, why not both? You can still decide to learn both of them and become a full-stack developer. So if you like this video, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and see you in the next one.